Coming live from the studio, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for watching another episode of All Sports. This is your host, Gerardo. Today I'm going to be talking about NBA free agency, the NBA draft, and I'll give you an update of what's happening in baseball in both the American League and the National League. Before I begin, I just want to talk about the videos that I did around the Denver area. So I did a video outside of Coors Field, outside the Pepsi Center, and outside of Broncos Stadium at Mile High. When I was at Coors Field, there was a Rockies game that day, so I got to show you the outside and the inside of the stadium. I really hope that you guys enjoyed those videos. If you haven't watched them yet, please watch them. They're really good videos. You'll get an idea of what Coors Field, the Pepsi Center, and Broncos Stadium at Mile High looks like. So I got to show you the inside of Coors Field. There was a Rockies game that day, so you got to see what it looks like before a Rockies game starts. And I really hope that you enjoyed those videos. If you have not been out to Coors Field, the Pepsi Center, or Broncos Stadium at Mile High here in Denver, I really hope that you have the opportunity to come out to these stadiums. All three of these stadiums are worth coming to. If there's not a game that day that you're here in Denver, I recommend that you take a tour of one of these stadiums because they're really nice. You definitely don't want to miss out seeing what these stadiums look like, even if there's a game or not a game. If there's a game, I highly recommend that you go inside the stadium. It's such an awesome experience, so I hope that you enjoyed those videos. Stay tuned for future videos from other stadiums across the US that I will be going to. I will do a video inside or outside of the stadium, and I will post it, so stay tuned for that. At the middle of every month, I will go in order and tell you about every stadium that I've been to across the US. I will start with Seattle. Seattle was my first city that I've been to outside of Denver, Colorado, so I will start with Seattle. That will be at the middle of July, and then at the middle of every month, I'll just tell you about every stadium and city I've been to across the US, so stay tuned for that. So let's begin with what I'm going to talk about today. So the first thing I'm going to talk about today is NBA free agency. So right now I'm going to tell you about all the big moves that happened around NBA free agency since free agency start on July 1st. I'll tell you about every big move that took place. There was a lot of other moves that took place, but I'm just going to tell you about all the big names. So let's begin. So Ruby Gay will be resigning with the Spurs. It's a one-year deal worth $10 million. Derrick Rose will be staying with the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's a one-year deal. Paul George decided to sign a new deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder. He decided that he wanted to stay with the Thunder and not go play with LeBron James in the LA Lakers. So he will be staying with Carmelo Anthony, who also resigned, and he'll be staying with Russell Westbrook. Chris Paul decided to stay with the Houston Rockets. He agreed to a 4-year, $160 million max contract, so he will be staying and playing with James Harden in the Houston Rockets. DeAndre Jordan decided that he will be playing for the Dallas Mavericks. It's a one-year deal that he agreed to. Kevin Durant decided to stay with the Golden State Warriors. It's a one-year deal, but it's actually a 2-year deal. He has the option to opt in for the 2019-2020 season or to become a free agent next summer. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. And then we all know that LeBron James decided to become a free agent and not re-sign with the Cleveland Cavaliers. There were a few teams that were interested in LeBron James: the Philadelphia 76ers, the Houston Rockets, the Los Angeles Lakers, and then there was also a rumor that the Denver Nuggets were making a serious move at wanting to meet with LeBron James and have a potential of signing LeBron James to a short-term deal, but we know that that didn't happen, but they were also rumored as well. And then over the last few days before LeBron James signed with the Los Angeles Lakers, the teams interested in LeBron, their representatives landed up meeting with LeBron James' agents, or they talked, but LeBron James decided that he wanted to go to the Los Angeles Lakers. And there's also been a report too that Kawhi Leonard wants out of San Antonio. He has not signed with another team yet. It would be a potential trade because he's still under contract until the end of this season. So actually next offseason, he would become a free agent. The Lakers want to make a move at Kawhi Leonard and trade to get him to play with LeBron James and the LA Lakers, but that really hasn't happened yet. The 76ers have also been another serious contender in signing Kawhi Leonard. They're still talking. The Boston Celtics have also been another team that's interested in Kawhi Leonard, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. It could end up being that Kawhi Leonard signs with a team this weekend, or it can go all the way till next week or next weekend, so just have to wait and see what happens there. There were many teams interested in LeBron James, like the 76ers, the Houston Rockets, Denver Nuggets, and I could have seen LeBron going to one of these other teams, but at the end of the day, he did decide to sign with the Los Angeles Lakers. For the third time around that he's been a free agent, he really didn't make it a big deal, and he really didn't like go to these teams or fly to every city or team that was interested in him and go like check out the team or have a conversation with them. The first time that he became a free agent, that's what he was doing. He landed up going to the Miami Heat, and that was really a big deal because he even had a press conference live on TV announcing that he was going to take his talents to the Miami Heat. The second time around, he just announced that he was going to go home to Cleveland and go play for the Cavaliers and bring them an NBA championship, which he did. But this time around, he really didn't make it a big deal or have a press conference. The report just came out saying that LeBron James is going to sign with the Los Angeles Lakers. Dirk Nowitzki will return to the Dallas Mavericks. It may be 1 or 2 more years. He's towards the end of his career, but he still has a little bit of basketball left in him, so I'm assuming that he might play 1 or 2 more years and then retire from the NBA. And then the biggest move of free agency was LeBron James signed a 4-year, $154 million contract to play for the Los Angeles Lakers. And then with Kawhi Leonard not signing with a team yet, the Los Angeles Lakers is still one of the favorite teams to land Kawhi Leonard. That's the one team that Kawhi Leonard has been wanting to play for. That's the team he really wants to go to, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. And then with some other moves, Aaron Gordon agrees to signing a 4-year, $84 million deal to remain with the Orlando Magic. Noel is a free agent, and just have to see what happens there. He's exploring other teams, and I don't know what team he'll sign with, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens there as well. JaVale McGee decides that he will be moving from the Golden State Warriors and go play with LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. It's reported that it's a 1-year deal. And then the other big move as well is Rajon Rondo decides that he wants out of New Orleans. Doesn't want to play for the Pelicans, so he will be going to the Los Angeles Lakers and playing with LeBron James. It's reported that it's a 1-year deal. The Suns made a really big move. They decided to re-sign Devin Booker and give him a max deal to remain with the Phoenix Suns. The Lakers decided that they didn't want to offer or keep Julius Randle, so he became a free agent, and he landed up going and signing with the New Orleans Pelicans. JJ Redick of the 76ers will be returning to the 76ers. He will have a contract between 12 to 13 million. It's a 1-year deal. The Cleveland Cavaliers, since they weren't able to re-sign LeBron James, they are open to trading Kevin Love. Let's wait and see what happens there. It hasn't really happened yet. Noel decided that he will be signing a 2-year deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder, so he will be teaming up with the big three that they already have: Carmelo Anthony, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook. Dwight Howard could have the potential of becoming a free agent or getting traded from the Charlotte Hornets. There was interest that the Golden State Warriors wanted to sign Dwight Howard, but the two sides have not agreed to a deal, so he's still on the market. The other two teams that are rumored to get Dwight Howard are the New Orleans Pelicans and the Washington Wizards, so we'll just wait and see what happens there. So the New Orleans Pelicans decide that they had reached a deal on a 2-year, $18 million contract to land Julius Randle. And then there's been another rumor the last day or two that the Portland Trail Blazers have decided that they may want to trade or move on from Damian Lillard, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. They could end up keeping Damian Lillard, but there could also be the option that they don't see that they could build around Lillard and they would have to trade him, because they are a playoff team and they're a decent team, but they wouldn't be a team that could make it all the way to the finals, because there's just other teams that could potentially advance further than the Trail Blazers and make it to the NBA Finals, so just have to wait and see what happens there. The other big news is DeMarcus Cousins decided to join the Golden State Warriors and sign a 1-year deal over $5 million. I was really surprised with this. It's a very talented team. They're already going to be the favorite to make it back to the NBA Finals and win it again. They already had a good team. They already added another superstar. So they already had 4 All-Stars. They added a 5th. Their whole starting lineup is All-Stars. So their starting lineup potentially for this season is Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and now DeMarcus Cousins. It's going to be a talented team. Bradley decided that he would sign a 2-year, $25 million deal to go to the Los Angeles Clippers. The Washington Wizards had shown interest in signing Austin Rivers. Have to wait and see what happens there. So Jeff Green decided that he would sign a 1-year deal over $2 million to play with the Washington Wizards. So now there's a rumor saying that Dwight Howard will become a member of the Washington Wizards. We just need to wait and see what happens there. It's not really official yet, but some other talks need to be discussed in order for Dwight Howard to sign with the Washington Wizards. That would be interesting to see if that happens. So that's all the current moves that have happened in the NBA free agency so far. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. There's a lot that can happen within the next few days. There's a lot of big names that are still available, so stay tuned for that. I know I'm keeping up to date of what's going on. I've been listening to ESPN. I've been reading all this news on the internet as well, so just wait and see what happens there. If any big moves happen, I will discuss it in my next show next week, so just stay tuned for that. Moving on now, we're going to talk about the NBA draft and what picks each team had and what big names that each team got. So every big name I will tell you about, but I will tell you about every pick that each team had. So let's begin with the Atlanta Hawks in the Eastern Conference. So the Atlanta Hawks added Trae Young with their number 5 overall pick. Originally, the Orlando Magic drafted Trae Young, but they landed up doing a trade between the Magic and the Hawks, so the Hawks got Trae Young. The Hawks had the number 5th pick, the number 19 pick, and the number 30th pick, so they did pretty good in the draft. Trae Young has a lot of potential, so that could be a potential good move for the Atlanta Hawks to become a better team. The Boston Celtics had the number 27 pick. The Brooklyn Nets had the number 29 pick, the 40th pick, and the 45th pick. Charlotte Hornets had the 12th pick, 34th pick, and the 55th pick. Chicago Bulls had the 7th pick, the 22nd pick. The Cavaliers had the 8th pick, and they landed up getting Colin Sexton. The Detroit Pistons had the 38th pick, the 42nd pick. The Pacers had the 23rd pick and the 50th pick. The Miami Heat had no picks. The Milwaukee Bucks had the 17th pick. The Knicks had the 9th pick and the 36th pick. The Orlando Magic had the 6th pick, the 35th pick, and the 43rd pick. The 76ers had the 16th pick, the 26th pick, the 39th pick, and the 54th pick. The Toronto Raptors had no picks. The Washington Wizards had the 15th pick and the 44th pick. They landed up doing a trade with the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Wizards got Austin Rivers, and then they sent Marquin Gortat to the Los Angeles Clippers. So the Washington Wizards have a potential better player as well, and Austin Rivers can play with John Wall. But there's also been a rumor that John Wall might be on the move and he could be traded to the Los Angeles Clippers or to the Los Angeles Lakers to team up with LeBron. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. And then moving on to the West. Here in the Western Conference, there were a lot of good picks as well as the East. Both the Eastern and the Western Conference did pretty good in the NBA draft this year. There were a lot of big names and a lot of good players that were available in the draft. So some teams that were at the bottom of their conference could potentially become a better team and have a potential making it to the playoffs this year or in the future. So it'll be pretty interesting to see what happens with some of these teams that were towards the bottom of their conference. So starting off with the Dallas Mavericks, they had the 3rd pick, the 33rd pick, the 56th pick, and the 60th pick. The Denver Nuggets had the 14th pick and they added Michael Porter Jr. This was a good move for the Denver Nuggets. Porter Jr. has a lot of potential. The Nuggets also had the 41st pick and the 58th pick as well. And then with the Denver Nuggets, they also re-signed Will Barton to a new contract. They signed Nikola Jokic to a 4-year max contract. So this team's going to be pretty good as well. They have young stars and talent, and they have the potential of making it into the playoffs this year or in the next few seasons. They'll be a pretty good team later on in the future. The Golden State Warriors had the 28th pick. The Houston Rockets had the 46th pick and the 52nd pick. The Los Angeles Clippers had the 11th pick and the 13th pick. And they also made that trade as well. The Los Angeles Lakers had the 25th pick and the 47th pick. The Memphis Grizzlies had the 4th pick and the 32nd pick. The Minnesota Timberwolves had the 20th pick and the 48th pick. The New Orleans Pelicans had the 51st pick. Oklahoma City Thunder had the 53rd pick and the 57th pick. Phoenix Suns had the number 1 overall pick. They landed up drafting DeAndre Ayton from the Arizona Wildcats. He was really good in college, so he has the potential of becoming a superstar in the NBA. There's been rumors that he might be the next LeBron James, and he has that same talent, so it'll be interesting to see how he plays. The Phoenix Suns have the potential of being a playoff team later on. They re-signed Devin Booker. They got Ayton with the number 1 overall pick, so they're going to be a pretty good team as well. They have a lot of potential. They got young talent, and they've done really good in the draft over the last few years. They've had high picks, so I'm interested to see what happens with the Phoenix Suns. They also had the 10th pick, the 31st pick, and the 59th pick. The Portland Trail Blazers had the 24th pick and the 37th pick. The Sacramento Kings had the 2nd overall pick. The San Antonio Spurs had the 18th pick and the 49th pick. The Utah Jazz had the 21st pick. And basically this year in the NBA draft, a lot of these teams in both conferences did really good in picking their potential franchise players. So just have to wait and see how these players in the NBA draft perform once the NBA season starts. I'm really looking forward to how Trae Young and DeAndre Ayton play this year and in the future years. So it's going to be a really good NBA season. There were a lot of good moves in both the NBA free agency and teams signing superstars to their teams or adding talent to their teams. In the NBA draft, teams were able to draft or add their potential franchise player to make their team better. For the last few years, there's been rumored that a lot of teams at the bottom of their conferences were just tanking and losing as many games as they could so they could have a high pick or have the opportunity to have the number 1 overall pick or a high pick in the NBA draft so they could get their franchise player. Hopefully with the teams that didn't make it into the playoffs last season, they got their franchise player and they could have the potential of competing in their conference and making it to the playoffs. There's a lot of talented teams in the Western Conference. That's going to be a very competitive conference. There's a lot of teams there that have a few superstars. There's a lot of big names in the West, so I'm really interested to see what happens in the West. That's the one conference that's going to be very competitive, so I'm looking forward to that. The Eastern Conference is a little bit different, but it'll still be kind of competitive. You just got like the same teams that are good, but both conferences will be interesting to see, and I can't wait for the NBA season to start this year, so just wait and see what happens in the NBA. Moving on now, I'm going to give you an update in baseball. I will give you an update in each division, both in the American League and the National League. So let's begin with the National League. Like I said last week in my first show, this is a very competitive division. It's basically looking like it'll be a 4-team race to decide who's going to win the division. It's really open right now. Whoever doesn't win a division could have the potential of winning the wild card as well. There could possibly be 2 teams from the NL West that will compete for the 2 wild card spots or even win the 2 wild card spots like it happened last year. So this is a very competitive division. Right now the Los Angeles Dodgers lead this division, but the Arizona Diamondbacks are tied at 47 games. The Colorado Rockies and the San Francisco Giants are only 3.5 games back. So this is going to come down to September. The MLB trade deadline is only a few weeks away. It's at the end of July. So all 4 of these teams could have the potential of not being sellers and being buyers. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with this division. Moving on now to the National League Central. The Milwaukee Brewers lead the division at 52 games, but the Chicago Cubs are only a game and a half back. The St. Louis Cardinals aren't too far back. This is probably going to be between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Chicago Cubs. They've only been like a game and a half back from each other. The Brewers have been leading this division for almost the whole season. I kind of expect that the Brewers will win this division, but the Cubs ain't too far back. The Cubs could be competing for one of those wild card spots when it comes down to September, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens here. Moving on to the National League East, the Atlanta Braves have been leading this division for almost the whole season. They're sitting at 49 games. The Phillies have been a surprise team. I did not expect that the Philadelphia Phillies would be playing this good. They were towards the bottom of the division last year. They have a very good team. They made some moves in the offseason, acquiring Jake Arrieta and Santana. So it's a pretty good team. I'm really surprised that they're keeping up with the Braves at the top of the division. They're only a game back from the Braves. The Washington Nationals have been kind of on a losing streak lately. They haven't really been winning a lot of games. This last month, they're sitting 6 games back. They could still potentially make a run for the playoffs. They're a playoff team. They've been in the playoffs the last few years, so anything can happen with the Nationals. The Mets and the Marlins probably won't make it into the playoffs. They're sitting pretty far back. Moving on to the American League. In the AL East, we got the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. They're both sitting atop of their division it's pretty certain that the AL East is going to be between the Red Sox and the Yankees. These teams have been really close to each other for the whole season. They're both really good teams. They both have a lot of talent. Right now, the Boston Red Sox are leading the division, but the New York Yankees are only 1 game back Red Sox. So there's a potential that one of these teams will win the division and the other team will be the wild card. This race will come down to September, so whoever plays better will be the division champion, and whoever doesn't win this division would probably be the wild card team. Looking at the Rays, the Blue Jays, and Baltimore, they're kind of like out of the race, and it looks like they're not going to make it into the playoffs, so it's just going to be between the Red Sox and the Yankees. Moving on to the American League Central, the Cleveland Indians are leading this division by 11 games. Looks like the Indians are going to win this division. All the other teams are pretty far back. The next closest team is the Minnesota Twins. They're 11 games back. I really don't see any other team catching up to the Cleveland Indians, so the AL Central is going to likely be the Cleveland Indians. The AL West was competitive at the beginning of the season, but right now looking at it, the Houston Astros are leading this division. They've been atop of this division for most of the season. They're sitting at 58 games, but the Seattle Mariners are only a game and a half back from them, sitting at 56 games. The Oakland Athletics, the Los Angeles Angels, and the Texas Rangers are sitting back pretty far. So I see this division being between the Houston Astros and the Seattle Mariners. This can come down to September, but I still kind of picked the Houston Astros to win this division. Just have to wait and see what happens here. Whoever wins their divisions, the AL wildcard really doesn't look that competitive. Whoever doesn't win the division in the West will probably be a wildcard team. And then whoever doesn't win their division in the AL East will be the other wildcard team. So let's say the Boston Red Sox win the AL East and the Houston Astros win the AL West. Then your 2 wildcard teams would be the New York Yankees and the Seattle Mariners. That's what it looks like. So if the Red Sox or the Yankees win their division, then it'll be the Red Sox or the Yankees having one of those wild card spots. And then if the Astros or the Mariners win their division, then it's going to be the Astros or the Mariners with the other wild card spot. So just have to wait and see what happens there. Looking at the National League, the wild card's going to be very competitive there. There's going to be a potential 4-way race in the National League West. So there's a potential that a lot of teams that are really close to each other, whoever doesn't play better baseball in September will not be making it into the playoffs. That kind of happened last year, where it came down to the last weekend of the regular season, where we already knew that the Arizona Diamondbacks were going to have the first wild card spot, but it came down to the Colorado Rockies, the Milwaukee Brewers, and the St. Louis Cardinals fighting for that second wild card spot. And whoever doesn't win those games, then that team's going to be the other team that wins that wild card spot, which will end up being the Colorado Rockies winning that second wild card spot, because the Brewers and the Cardinals were playing each other that last weekend, and the Cardinals had already got eliminated because they were losing games before that last weekend series of the regular season. And then with the help of the Cardinals beating the Brewers those games, then the Rockies were able to win their games, and they were beating the Dodgers, and the Brewers were losing to the Cardinals, so the Rockies got in as a wild card team. So this division is going to be very competitive. Just need to wait and see what happens and who wins their division. Looking at the wild card standings, I can see the wild card being between whoever doesn't win the division in the National League West. So it could be between the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, the Dodgers, and the Giants. And then whoever doesn't win the division in the National League Central, it could be between the Brewers and the Cubs. Whoever doesn't win the division in the NL East, it could be between the Washington Nationals and the Atlanta Braves. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. There's a potential of like 5 or 6 teams fighting for a wild card spot. So my prediction, it would be like the Phillies, the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Rockies, the Giants, and then for the division teams that win their division, probably either the Diamondbacks or the Dodgers win the National League West, the Brewers win the NL Central, and then the Atlanta Braves win the NL East. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. That's going to be a very competitive National League, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. When it comes down to September, it's going to be very competitive in both the American League and the National League. So it's going to be interesting to see who makes it into the playoffs and who misses the playoffs. And with the trade deadline coming up at the end of July, there's going to be a lot of big names that have the potential of being on the move, and we're going to have teams that are going to be buyers or sellers. Whoever feels like they have a chance at competing for a playoff spot, they will be a buyer. If there's teams that look at themselves and see that they were competing for the playoffs, but right now it just looks like they're not going to make it into the playoffs, then they'll be potential sellers. So it's just going to depend on who plays good baseball these next few weeks, and if they don't play good baseball, they'll be sellers. If they feel like they have a chance and they're playing good baseball, then they're going to be buyers. So there's going to be a lot of big names. Stay tuned for that. I'll update you on potential moves that are going to happen. I'm going to stay up to date to that because I know there's going to be big names that are going to be on the move to potential playoff teams. So I'm looking forward to that. And then moving on to the closing of the show. In the next few weeks, we got the All-Star break coming up, so it's going to be interesting to see who gets into the All-Star game, who's going to be starters in both the American League and the National League. The All-Star game is going to be in Washington, D.C., so I'm looking forward to that. The All-Star festivities is always good. They got the Fan Fest. They got the Futures game where the Rising Stars play a game, and there's a lot of potential franchise players that play in that game. The Home Run Derby is always good. I'm looking forward to see who's going to be in the Home Run Derby. Aaron Judge won the Home Run Derby last year in Miami. He did really good, so could he go back to back and win it again? Who else is going to be in the Home Run Derby? That's going to be interesting. The All-Star game is going to be great like it always is. I want to see who's going to be the starters and who they're going to have as backup players. I really hope that you voted in your favorite players. There's a lot of players that deserve to be in the All-Star game, so just have to wait and see what happens there. Really looking forward to the All-Star break. That's the chance for teams to also get rest, or players that don't make it to the All-Star festivities to get rest, because after the All-Star break, you're going to have to play really good baseball, because if you don't, you're not going to make it into the playoffs. So after the All-Star break, you really need to play really good baseball. Then after the All-Star break as well, there's only like 2 or 3 weeks because the trade deadline's on July 31st. So that's going to be interesting to see. I'll update you on both the All-Star festivities and the trade deadline as we get closer to that. So I'm looking forward to what happens in baseball as well. The NBA Summer League's happening right now as well. All your young stars or potential franchise players are playing basketball right now, and they're getting ready for the upcoming season. So I've been watching and tuning into that, and it's just going to be really nice to see what these young stars have the potential of being when the NBA season comes up. So watch that as well. Next week I'll give you an update on baseball again and tell you about the teams that are getting closer to their races. There's almost a race in every division in both the American League and the National League. So looking forward to see who makes it into the playoffs and who doesn't make it into the playoffs. At the beginning of the show, I told you that I will be telling you about my baseball experiences at every stadium and city that I've been to across the U.S., so stay tuned for that. My experience of Seattle is coming up at the middle of July, so I will be telling you about Seattle and starting off with Seattle, so stay tuned for that. If you haven't watched any of my videos from the stadiums from the Denver area, please watch those. They're very good videos. You'll like those videos. You'll get to see what these stadiums look like, and if you haven't been to these stadiums, then you have an idea of what they look like, and you can come out and visit these stadiums as well. I will be posting more videos from other stadiums across the US. I will be traveling to other stadiums this summer, so stay tuned for that. Just like I always do, I will have a show every week as well, so stay tuned for my next show next week. And I'm really just looking forward to giving you guys more updates and telling you about other things that are happening across every league in all sports. So I'm really looking forward to what happens in the NBA free agency. There's a lot of other potential moves that could take place, so I'm really watching what happens there as well. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that tunes into every episode of All Sports. Until next time, this is Gerardo.